Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the We Shall Not Sleep podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this week. What a tremendous pleasure and privilege it is to have you listening to the show. Wherever you may be, however you might be listening this evening, I hope that you are doing well. My prayer for you in this very moment is that these words are received well and in good faith. And if it is an encouragement for just one person, then all of it is worth it. We do it for the one, right? We don't have to have a podcast that is listened to by millions upon millions of people. We see Scripture tell us that the shepherd leaves all of the sheep, the 99, to find the one. That's kind of the goal here. If it's having an impact on just one person, it's worth it. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen this evening, or whenever you might be listening this, the next day or not. I wanted to talk about a topic that my parents and I have been talking much more about recently, and the things that drive so many of our motivations, and that's the topic of fear. Now, I want to juxtapose a couple of things here, because fear of the Lord, as the book of Ecclesiastes talks about, is a very good thing, and we want to differentiate that between what we mean when we talk about fear of anything else. One of my favorite authors, Oswald Chambers, gives one of the best quotes when it comes to fear. He says, quote, "The remarkable thing about God is that when you fear God, you fear nothing else. Whereas if you do not fear God, you fear everything else." Yes. It's also said, Kidner once said, "The fall of man was a choosing of what bid fair to make one wise, but flouted the first principle of wisdom, the fear of the Lord." So when we talk about fear, what are we saying? Yeah, like being afraid of something. Like it's being afraid of the boogeyman. It's being afraid of the dark. You know that moment maybe when you were a kid? I can relate to this. When you watched a scary movie and then you're laying in your bed at night and you are trying to go to sleep, but your brain is on in a hyper awareness alert mode. You might be sweating a little bit. Your heart rate might be up, and you think every little creak, every little thing that you hear that you never heard before, because again, your brain goes into this hyper alert status, and you think it's the monster. And when a parent walks in the room, or a sibling or whatever, somebody else comes, that release, that sigh, that tightness in your chest goes away, right? I think we all can relate to this. I truly believe we all can. And so what I want to get at is that is a motive for a lot of people on this planet. That is a motive for a whole lot of folks who go into life and they make every decision based on fear. Fear of what? Fear of rejection. Fear maybe of shame, of sorrow, of betrayal. All these things. And we make these calculations. They become defense mechanisms where it's no longer something that's active. It's just passive. It just becomes who we are. What do we hold back from relationships? Has life taught us to be guarded and jaded because we know if we say this one thing or we let somebody in this regard, that what's going to happen? Well, they're going to betray us. They're going to hurt us. And I'm never going to let that happen again. That's how we operate, isn't it? That is how we see the world sometimes. But if we go over to the end of Ecclesiastes, this is seen in Proverbs. I'll actually read, let me do us a favor. Let me read Proverbs chapter 1, the intro. Again, written, attributed to Solomon, the son of David, who asked for wisdom and was honored. And here's how Proverbs opens. It says, "The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to discern the sayings of understanding, to receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the naive, to the youth knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase in learning, and a man of understanding will acquire wise counsel. To understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise in their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." Now, it's translated there in the NASB as knowledge. Fear of the Lord, fear, respect, understanding who, as Jesus says, can kill both the body and soul, not someone who can just kill the body. And then if we go to Ecclesiastes, at the end of Ecclesiastes, again, this book is about meaningless, everything is meaningless. And what Solomon was discovering is that apart from God, there's no point to any of it. Because all of it is left open to interpretation, right? Right? Like there's not, where's the paradigm anymore? That's what it's getting at. So, what does he say? In addition, the purpose of the preacher, this is the person who's collecting all these sayings. In addition to being a wise man, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, and he pondered, searched out, and arranged many proverbs. The preacher sought to find delightful words and to write words of truth correctly. The words of wise men are like goads, and masters of these collections are like well-driven nails. They are given by one shepherd. But beyond this, my son, be warned, the writing of many books is endless, and excessive devotion to books is wearying to the body. So this idea that humans will never stop with their quest for knowledge and adding to their knowledge base, but to what end is essentially, it's like, do we hope to solve all the world's problems? And he says, the conclusion when all has been heard is this: fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil. Yes, indeed. That's it. The purpose of life. Fear God, keep his commandments. Well, what are his commandments? Well, you just got to go read them, and it's right there in the Bible. Just go read them. I'd start out with maybe the book of John, and go from there. That's where I would stay. So when we talk about fear, now let's go back and go back to that example that I gave previously with the person sitting in their bed. They have watched something that scares them, and they can't sleep. They are afraid until somebody else comes. And whether that be a sibling, a parent, a friend, they're no longer alone. And we do the same thing. That might seem silly. It's like, oh man, that Sharknado, like that's not gonna, it's a tornado of great white sharks. Like it's gonna rampage my house. No, that's obviously not going to happen. But yet at the same time, we project that same fear when we've been hurt as little kids, betrayal, relationships, what we do with our business, stuff like that, right? What do? We project it on other people in the same way. And instead of somebody coming to our rescue, which we desperately want, that person who walks in the room, we tell them to get out and to leave, don't we? And because we can't trust them, maybe they are the boogeyman too, even though clearly they aren't. Just got to look at them. And so we just shoot away. We just dismissed the peace that we were ultimately seeking. How ironic is that? Authors of our own destruction, aren't we sometimes? So I bring this up because we talk about the Bible has 365 commands roughly that says do not fear. It has nothing to do with fearing God. It's about do not be afraid, fear not. And it's that same fear that you're walking home at night and all the lights go out, or you're afraid of the dark, or it's in the fight or flight, or you're afraid to commit, you're afraid of being left out, you're afraid of being made fun of, you're afraid of being late, you're afraid of being shamed. Fear guides so many decisions, and yet it's the most prevalent command in Scripture is do not fear. And it's just something I've been living in as well. I'm just going to fear God. I'm not going to be afraid anymore. For example, to make it more real. So here's something I've told myself I need to make up for it. Back during before the pandemic. This was a couple years before the pandemic. There was an airline that I was out of Iceland. I won't name it because I don't want to be held liable. That was struggling to survive, and they were at the time offering very cheap deals to try to get tourists from the States into Iceland. And so they were offering these incredible deals for certain domestic locations. Well, I'm an hour or so away from Detroit Metro Airport. They were offering, I'm not joking because I looked this up. I had my passport at the time and I had plenty of vacation. At this time, I am 24 years of age, okay? Think about this. No girlfriend. I had no girlfriend at the time. Plenty of money, plenty of vacation time, and the means. It was $100 round trip to Iceland. I could have taken a day off and just gone there for the weekend. And what stopped me from going on an adventure? I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling this. I'm getting chills because I am that emotionally disturbed. It was all because of fear. And here's my thinking process. Well, where do I park my car at Detroit? What if I mess up? What if I get ticketed? And what if my car gets towed? What if I get there and I no one speaks English, even though that's not the case? I've seen people go to Iceland. There's a reason why I wanted to go to Iceland. Well, what happens if I can't find a place to stay? What happens if I get robbed? What happens if I don't have enough money or something goes wrong? What happens if all of these things in my mind, like all the logistics, where am I going to use the bathroom? What happens if I can't find, something? Even if I just went there, took the 9-hour flight, got off the plane and went, wow, I'm in Iceland. And then I came back the next day, which is legitimately what I was thinking about doing. Like, hey, I left the country for $100 and I checked a place off. Like, that is legitimately an opportunity of a lifetime that I passed up. You want to know what like tickets are now? Like $2,200 to get to Iceland now. And granted, I would not have been able to do all what I wanted to have, but I never even thought about asking a friend to go, because in that case, I could have gone with a friend, right? I could have gone with a friend and we could have tag teamed it and we could have safety in numbers. But yeah, none of that happened because of fear. I had the means, I had the time, I had the money, and the opportunity of a lifetime, and I said no because of fear. I said no when I was like 12 years old. Somebody asked me to go on a jet ski ride, and I was all proud. I'm thinking, well, I'm gonna have to show off for these guys because these guys are older than me. Never been on a jet ski before, and I said no, thank you. I didn't go on a jet ski, and ever since that day, I remembered that I did not get into fear because I didn't want to make fun of myself because I was afraid of failure, I was afraid of embarrassing myself. And finally, last summer, I was on a jet ski for the first time in my life at 30 years old with my mom in the Bahamas. So that was kind of fun. But that was something I'm like, I am going to go eventually in my life and make up for all the times that I said no to an adventure or time, whether it was trying food, traveling somewhere, doing something by myself. I'm just going and doing it. I'm not allowing fear to stop me anymore. So these are the things that when we talk about in life, these are the things that essentially don't matter. Like when I look back at my life in the kingdom of heaven, I'm not going to say like, wow, I'm really glad I got on a jet ski someday, or I'm really glad I got on a plane and went to Iceland. Those are more symbolic gestures, but it's the attitude that comes with them. What am I allowing to rule my life? What am I allowing to dictate my patterns of behavior when God gives me opportunities for sustenance, for relaxation, for the amazing adventure? Not that I am deserving of it, but the times where God's like, well done, my faithful servant. Let me arrange this thing for you. And then we shove the gift away because we're too afraid. What happens when it's a relationship? We've been praying for a relationship forever or peace of mind, and then somebody brings somebody in our pathway, and they are amazing, but because of fear, we don't want to let them into our inner circle. I'm not saying do not be weary, do not have discernment or caution, discretion, knowledge, but my goodness, what is our motive when we're approaching a situation? Are we even looking at it through a lens in which God may have brought us this thing, and therefore it is trustworthy? I don't know. These are my stories, and I'm 31, and I don't know anything. Let me tell you, I don't know hardly anything at all. You guys you guys have the ability to know a lot more than I do, but I can tell you fear has played a pivotal role in my life over the years, and I'm done. If I'm saying no to something, it's because it is stupid or it is foolish, it is immoral, something of that sort. It's not because, well, I'm afraid to do it. We have good reasons to say no to things. But if it's fear stopping us, and that's the methodology in which we use, which we employ in every decision, then we will certainly miss out on amazing opportunities God has brought us our way, for sure. So I hope that falls on. I hope that connects a little bit with fertile soil, and that's just something I wanted to share. So thank you very much for taking the time tonight. May God bless you. And may God keep you.